I'm happier here, he answered. Why? She asked. I guess it's Mom, he said. Mom's not a physician, but she heals the sick. She's not a banker, but we deposit our hurts and hopes with her. She's not a gardener, but she plants the seeds of faith, truth, and love. She's not a preacher, but she teaches her children what's true and helps them do what's right. No wonder the Bible says, honor your mother.
For your free copy of Dr. Guido's daily devotional, Seeds from the Sower, write The Sower, Mentor, Georgia, 30439.
Visit us on the web at thesower.com.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And thank you for joining us for News Roundup Friday today here on Crosstalk. Sandy's been busy this week, gathering many stories to bring to our attention here today. So thank you, Sandy, for this. And also grateful to have Molly on the phones. Dennis back in the control room again. And looking forward to presenting to you lots of news and information. Certainly, this keeps us informed to be understanding of the times in which we live. Understanding that as it was in the days of Noah, we are soon becoming like those days with not only the violence that is taking place, but also we see that mankind is doing every evil imagination of his heart, and that's been put out before us on so many different fronts as well. So we are living in a time when good is called evil, evil is called good, and certainly it behooves us in this world to be salt and light to a world that's greatly in need of Jesus. We're going to begin today with what took place in China earlier this week. This story now from the Epoch Times. President Trump said that the head of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, was conspiring against the United States with the leaders of Russia and North Korea as they gathered for a military parade in Beijing, marking the anniversary of China's defeat of the Japanese in World War II. President Trump posted on Truth Social whether Xi would remain the massive amount of support and blood that the U.S. gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. That was referring to Imperial Japan. And President Trump said, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. The Kremlin foreign policy aide responded to this saying, I would like to say that no one has been conspiring, no one has been plotting anything, no conspiracies. Well, very interesting indeed, and also troubling that, as Newsbusters points out, that ABC, CBS, NBC were boasting about China's military parade, flexing against the U.S., and also hyped how this was a powerful flex against the United States on many levels. Something else interesting took place here at this event. Leaders of China and Russia walked shoulder to shoulder on a hot mic, captured them discussing increasing longevity through organ transplants. Possibly extending one's lifespan to 150 years. The conversation was live streamed through Chinese state media to billions online and on television, made international headlines as China watchers scrutinized the implications, with many pointing to long-standing concerns about forced organ harvesting. The moment came as the Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un ascended the Tiananmen Square of Rostam and in Beijing for a massive military parade. Though this is another language, you can just kind of hear this, and we'll share more on this in just a moment. So as that audio is playing earlier, people rarely live to 70, but these days at 70 you're still a child, said Xi through a translator in Russian. As biotechnology advances, human organs can be continuously transplanted, allowing us to become younger and younger, perhaps even achieve immortality, Putin replied through his interpreter. The feed then cut to a wide shot of Tiananmen Square. Predictions are that this century there's a chance of living to 150, she said off camera just before the audio faded. Both she and Putin are 72 years old. House Speaker Mike Johnson shook his head when he heard about the exchange Wednesday morning. He said, I will tell you what we've heard, some horrific stories of these organ transplants and all of this in China, that they take it from unwilling donors, to put it mildly. The fact that they were caught in a hot mic is very telling. Newsweek is reporting that China and Russia have greenlit a new cross-border natural gas pipeline in a major win for Russian President Vladimir Putin. Through questions about who pays for this still remain unresolved. Once completed, this proposed Power of Siberia 2 pipeline could pump 50 billion cubic meters of gas per year into China. That's about 61% more than present. The new route would run through Mongolia, through western Siberia. Russia has turned to China to offset the collapsing European gas sales, which have dropped by more than 70% since 2021. That's when Russia invaded Ukraine. From thefrank.com, President Putin on Wednesday claimed he never refused a meeting with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky and invited him to come to Moscow. If Zelensky is ready for a meeting, let him come to Moscow, Putin said. President Trump told reporters from the Oval Office Wednesday that he would be speaking with Putin very shortly, as his 2-week deadline issued last month for the Kremlin chief to meet with Zelensky is now up. He said, I'll know pretty much what we're going to be doing. We've taken very strong action, but I'll be speaking to him over the next few days, and we're going to see. From SRN News, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un said his country would fully support Russia's army as a fraternal duty, and President Putin called the two countries special, their ties being special, state media KCNA reported. Putin highly praised North Korean soldiers fighting against Ukraine, said the two countries' relations are special ones of trust, friendship, and alliance. North Korea has sent soldiers, artillery, ammunition, and missiles to Russia to support Moscow in its war against Ukraine. It believes North Korea plans to deploy another 6,000 troops, with about 1,000 combat soldiers already in Russia. From MSN.com, Trump administration has approved $825 million in weapons sales to Ukraine. Worthy News is reporting that leaders from 26 nations have pledged to commit troops to Ukraine as part of the post-war security guarantees. The U.S. attended meetings yesterday, represented by Special Presidential Envoy Steve Witkoff, signaling its anticipated support in form of air capabilities and intelligence backing. However, Washington has made it clear it would not involve boots on the ground. Ukraine's future must be secured not only by words but actions, Macron said after the summit. And that's from France, President of France. The reassurance force will ensure that Russia never again dares to threaten Ukrainian sovereignty. And WNG.org is reporting that a federal grand jury in Dayton, Ohio, has indicted 3 U.S. citizens, 22 Chinese citizens, and 4 Chinese pharmaceutical companies in international drug trafficking and money laundering conspiracies. From 2022 until their recent arrest, a couple from Tip City, Ohio, and a person from Atlanta purchased shipments of illegal drug-cutting agents from Chinese companies, according to the Department of Justice. They then allegedly distributed the substances to fentanyl traffickers in Ohio and then arranged cryptocurrency payments to Chinese dealers. The Epoch Times reporting that the House on September 2nd overwhelmingly passed a bill seeking to stop the flow of fentanyl from China. The tally was 407 to 4. The Stop Chinese Fentanyl Act, introduced by Representative Barr of Kentucky, would impose sanctions on Chinese producers of synthetic opioids and opioid precursors. The Houston Chronicle reporting that federal officials called the capture of 1,300 barrels of substances coming in from China to Mexico the largest seizure of precursor chemicals in the history of U.S. law enforcement during a Wednesday news conference in Pasadena. The 2 shipments were intercepted by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol within the last week from 2 different vessels from the same vendor in China. The shipments were consolidated in Panama, diverted to the port of Houston. Following their seizure, contained some 360,000 pounds of benzyl alcohol, 334,000 pounds of N-methanol formaldehyde, which could be used to make 420,000 pounds of methamphetamine, with a street value in Houston of more than $569 million. Well, there was a member of the Polish media that found out that it's not a good idea to try to get President Donald Trump in a gotcha moment during a Wednesday press conference, reports townhall.com. Jeff Charles reports that this occurred during a joint press conference with Polish President Nawrocki. The reporter brought up how Trump has expressed frustration with Vladimir Putin's refusal to iron out a peace deal with Ukraine. And the reporter stated that there has been no action on this front. You can hear the exchange take place and how President Trump responded.
You've expressed many times your frustration and disappointment with Putin, but there's no action since you took your office.
How do you know there's no action?
But
really?
Wait.
Who are you with?
I'm with Polish radio.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job, because if you remember 2 weeks ago I said if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that.
From CBN News, Israelis are marking the 700th day since the Hamas kidnapping and massacre of more than 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals, October 7th, 2023. Also the 700th day of captivity for hostages. The Israeli Defense Forces announced they now control 40% of Gaza City, even before the main thrust of its offensive begins. CBN reports that the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, believes the war in Gaza is entering a decisive stage. Although Israelis disagree about the way forward, the Israeli Defense Forces called up 40,000 reservists to help capture Gaza City, as the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio denied visas for Palestinian officials. The IDF chief of staff warned that the takeover of Gaza City would lead to a military government. Netanyahu explained that he opposes a partial hostage deal and a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas. He quoted as saying, President Trump cautioned, forget the partial deals, go in with full force and finish this. Gaza's 2 million citizens would be temporarily relocated to another country or into secure zones during the reconstruction. Each Gaza resident who chooses to leave would receive a one-time payment as well as subsidies for housing and food. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio dropped the bombshell last Friday by denying visas for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and 80 other PA officials. The decision upsets the plans of 4 countries that plan to declare a Palestinian state later this month. At the UN General Assembly, Abbas is planned to attend a summit hosted by Saudi Arabia and France, during which the UK, France, Australia, and Canada plan to formally recognize a Palestinian state. CBN also reporting that Israel's prime minister has decided to shelve a plan to apply Israeli sovereignty to the biblical lands of Judea and Samaria. His decision to postpone the annexation plan came after a warning from the UAE to Israel and President Trump that annexing Judea and Samaria would threaten the Abraham Accords signed 5 years ago between Israel and Arab states. Regional local council heads from Judea and Samaria have formulated the annexation plan, with Israel's finance minister to cover more than 80% of the biblical lands. And from Newsmax.com, President Trump is making yet another urgent plea for Hamas to release all the hostages, saying it's going to end. Release all the hostages. He said, don't do so 2 or 5 or 7. Do it rapidly. And we have got some more information on Israel and other matters around the world here and domestically, which we'll be covering on Crosstalk's News Roundup in just a minute here on the VCY American Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, geologist and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, does the fossil record prove evolution?
Not at all, Chris. In fact, it couldn't prove evolution because evolution didn't happen. I don't even think it supports evolution very well. What we see in the fossil record are the same kinds of plants and animals which are alive today. They can be put in the various categories such as clams or snails or brachiopods. Some animals, like the dinosaurs, have gone extinct, but none of the fossils seem to point to one type of animal evolving or changing into another type. That's because evolution simply didn't happen. What did happen is creation. Creation of the basic types of plants and animals that God created. They exist into the present day or else have gone extinct, but nothing else has arisen since then. And that's the way it is back in Genesis.
Thanks, Dr. Morris. For more on creation, visit our website at www.icr.org.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America News Roundup Friday here today on the broadcast, and many things going on around the world and in our nation as well. Help us to be understanding of the times in which we live and to sense the urgency of the hour, the urgency of getting out the gospel to a world that is lost and dying. As we will further point out, we are fast becoming like the days of Noah. Very interesting because the media is always ready to pounce on anything Israel or however they can get in opposition to Israel, but are not always first and foremost in promoting and telling other stories. This from Israel National News. There's an 8-year-old boy from Gaza who was previously reported to have been killed by IDF forces last May. Well, it's been confirmed. The boy is alive and he is safe. There was a dramatic and complex rescue effort led by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. But both Fox News, Daily Wire have covered this. Ends weeks of speculation and concern over the fate of this child whose story has drawn international attention and scrutiny. The boy, identified as Abdul Rahim Mohammed Hamdan, but more commonly referred to by his nickname Aboud, became the focal point of a viral claim that alleged that the child, whom he called Amir, was killed by Israeli forces outside a GHF aid distribution center last May 28th. Now, many of these times we talk about the children being killed by Israeli defense forces. Well, I guess they didn't keep the boy hidden long enough because he was found and is alive and is doing well. Others whom they have accused of starving children in the area found to have had pre-existing conditions who, long before Israel had gotten engaged with this. And now video is emerging. I'm looking at the Geller report. A new video emerges of Hamas terrorists severely beating a large group of Gazan civilians at a market. It's brutal footage showing Hamas thugs beating Gazan men for taking aid as a fenced-in crowd cheers under the watch of armed guards. Yes, they take the aid that's been given to them, taking the food supplies. And who beats them? Hamas. Where is the world? Where is ABC and CBS and NBC telling that story? Worthy Christian News, Israel successfully has launched the OFEC-19 reconnaissance satellite into orbit Tuesday night. The Defense Ministry described this as a radar observation satellite equipped with synthetic aperture radar capable of delivering high-resolution imaging and reconnaissance in all weather conditions, day or night, operating at an altitude of 500 kilometers, that's about 310 miles, circling the Earth every 90 minutes. It's a new capabilities, an eye in the sky, expanding Israel's control over the Middle East from space. From CNN, Israel killed the prime minister of Yemen's Houthi rebels, Ahmad al-Rahawi, in a strike. Iran-backed Houthi rebels stormed the offices of 2 UN agencies. And very interesting indeed that this individual taken out. Let's see. From Jihad Watch, Palestinian Authority continues to pay salaries to terrorists. The Palestinian Authority. Yeah, we want to recognize a Palestinian state who reward people for killing Israelis, who become martyrs for the cause of Muhammad and Allah. The Palestinian Authority has once again failed to honor the public commitment it made to the United States and to European donor countries in January of this year to end its policy of financially rewarding terrorism. Despite pledging to halt monthly salaries to imprisoned terrorists and stipends to families of so-called martyrs, the PAA continues these payments. Washington Times reporting Belgium will be joining Australia, Canada, France, and the UK in recognizing a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly. That's to be taking place next week. Okay, let's get on to another issue. Do you know where your rights come from? Well, Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia, he was in a hearing this past Wednesday, just some 48 hours ago, and told the room that our rights come from government, and the very thought that rights come from God is extremely troubling. I'd like you to listen in to what Senator Kaine had to say, and right after he speaks, you're going to hear a response from Senator Ted Cruz.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the Creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
So Senator Kaine said in this hearing that he found it a radical and dangerous notion that you would say our rights came from God and not from government. I just walked into the hearing as he was saying that, and I almost fell out of my chair. Because that radical and dangerous notion, in his words, is literally the founding principle upon which the United States of America was created. And if you do not believe me, and you made reference to this, Mr. Barnes, then you can believe perhaps the most prominent Virginian to ever serve, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator. Not by government, not by the Democratic National Committee, but by God."
Wow. Interesting exchange. Senator Kaine talking about it being dangerous, to think that our rights don't come from government and they come from God. Senator Ted Cruz had a wonderful response to the senator from Virginia, referring back to an earlier one from Virginia, Thomas Jefferson. Okay, from the Frank, Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani will easily win the race for New York City mayor, but he'd have a true dogfight on his hands in a one-on-one contest, a new survey claims. The socialist candidate would lose 41 to 52% in a head-to-head battle with the former governor, Andrew Cuomo, and face a much tighter race if incumbent Mayor Eric Adams were the only opponent. That's according to a poll conducted by for the New York Apartment Association. Well, the Frank also reports that New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been reluctant to abandon his bid for re-election, but an influential post in President Donald Trump's administration could incentivize him to bow out and make it easier to come out of this race. Adams has been offered a position at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to a person with direct knowledge of the offer, the mayor, who has a friendly working and political relationship with President Trump, met with the president's team during his visit Tuesday to Florida. Worried about New York City becoming led by a Democratic socialist, Republican centrist Democrats and business community leaders have been eager to consolidate anti-Mamdani voters behind one candidate. Just the News is reporting that the independent New York City mayoral candidate and former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on Thursday told reporters he does not want President Trump's support or involvement in his campaign to lead the city in November. He said, "I don't want him involved in anything with my race. What Eric Adams chooses to do is up to Eric Adams. What Curtis Sliwa chooses to do is up to Curtis Sliwa." Fox News is reporting Andrew Cuomo challenged the New York City mayoral opponent, Zoran Mamdani, to 5 different debates across all 5 New York City boroughs during a press release Thursday. The challenge came as the former governor slammed Mamdani at the press conference. for failing to give a straight answer to reporters' questions and changing his mind on everything that he has said on the campaign trail. Mamdani shot back with a proposal of his own, and that was for him to debate President Trump. He said, let's cut out the middleman. Why should I debate Donald Trump's puppet when I could debate Donald Trump himself? Israel National News tells us attorney Jim Walden announced Tuesday he is suspending his bid for mayor of New York City and imploring other candidates to do the same to stop Mamdani from winning November's general election. Walden was an independent, had been polling a distant fifth in that race. The Daily Caller tells us that AOC, she is blasting her party leadership Wednesday of this week for largely failing to get behind Mamdani in the mayoral race. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer have yet to endorse his campaign for mayor in their city, despite the Democratic Socialist being the city's official candidate for mayor and leading in general election polling. AOC trying to shame them for not getting involved. Townhall.com says that this Democratic Socialist has earned the support of former New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, who believes the Assemblyman's bold, sweeping agenda is just what the Big Apple needs. As a matter of fact, Townhall.com tells us that Bill de Blasio was not expecting MSNBC to press him on details about this public policy position. He is backing Mamdani. The former mayor was discussing how free busing, part of Mamdani's platform, works, but was not prepared for some questioning back by MSNBC's Morning Joe. Let's listen in to see what happened there. This happening just recently.
Free busing.
And who runs that?
The city of New York runs it, just like we run so many other services. And the bottom line here is think about the free buses again. Free buses has been proven to work in many parts of the country.
Where?
I'll get you a list of cities, but the bottom line is it is something that allows people to, one, reduce their costs, which people are overwhelmed by,
right,
to get into mass transit more. It works because we know that if people are given a quality alternative they can afford, they'll use it.
If they're giving an alternative they can afford, they'll use it. Okay, we're talking free busing. But he was questioned right away. He said free buses have been proven to work, in cities across this country. And he was simply asked where. And, well, he didn't have a list of cities that he could give. It doesn't work. We understand Kansas City tried this. It failed. Had a city-run grocery store. That also failed. We have seen here even our HOP here in Milwaukee that was designed to collect fares and found out, well, I guess we need to continue offering it free. That's not paying off either. So very interesting to see what's taking place there. Well, there is a lot that is going on right now as well with the grilling of Senator Kennedy this week. Breitbart says Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. turned the tables on Democrats Thursday during a fiery Senate hearing after Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon almost hysterically claimed that Kennedy was putting children in danger. Kennedy called out the senator for doing nothing to prevent the rise of chronic disease in American children. Let's listen into this questioning back and forth.
About anything you've done or plans to change it. And my last comment is, I hope that you will tell the American people how many preventable child deaths are an acceptable sacrifice for enacting an agenda that I think is fundamentally cruel and defies common sense. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Do I get a reply? Or, Senator, you've sat in that chair for how long? 20, 25 years, while the chronic disease in our children went up to 76%. And you said nothing. You never asked the question why it's happening. Why is this happening? Today, for the first time in 20 years, we learned that infant mortality has increased in our country. It's not because I came in here. It's because of what happened during the Biden administration that we're going to end.
A quick comeback there from Senator Kennedy. And friends, we're going to take a quick break. And I'm going to play one more exchange for you as well. And this one with Senator Michael Bennet out of Colorado, who objected to Secretary Kennedy's firing the government's panel of so-called vaccine experts. So we'll take a quick break here on Crosstalk. We'll come back to that and some other news stories as well on this program. Thanks for tuning in to our News Roundup Friday here on the VCY American Network.
Relationships have been shattered due to a lack of forgiveness. It's impacted marriages, parents and children, siblings, and even church families as a whole. Some have said that forgiveness is the most difficult commandment that we are given as Christians. Why is that? Perhaps it is because it strikes at the core of our pride that says we deserve better than we are getting. Perhaps it seems if we do forgive, we are letting that person win in a situation that hurt us in some way. In the book, Forgiven People Forgive, Pastor Jeff Miller shows us where the rubber meets the road. At the heart of why we should forgive is the fact that God has forgiven us, thus we are commanded to forgive. It's so easy for bitterness to take root in a heart that is unforgiving. Forgiven People Forgive is available for a donation of $9 or more to VCY America. Call 1-800-729-9829.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America with the News Roundup Friday today, covering many of the issues from this past week. We're going to be getting into some matters pertaining to life and also the LGBT agenda. What's going on with that? We'll get into some of those stories this segment as well. We're talking right now, though, about Secretary Kennedy, Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., turning the tables on Democrats yesterday during a rather fiery Senate hearing, as Breitbart reported it. Not only did we have that clip from Senator Wyden, but also there is Senator Michael Bennet, who objected to Kennedy's firing the government's panel of so-called vaccine experts, claiming that Kennedy had lied about the safety of vaccines. Kennedy countered, "Are you saying, Senator, that the mRNA has never been associated with myocarditis or pericarditis?" Well, Bennett didn't want to answer that question, and Kennedy said, "You're evading the question." You can listen in to see how that exchange went.
I think it's critical for you to share the evidence that this panel will rely on. Will you give the American people 6 months or 6 weeks in advance the record that they're going to rely on to make these decisions? Will you make it transparent for the American people?
All the evidence is transparent.
Will you make it in advance transparent for the American people so they can comment on it?
All the evidence is transparent for the first time in history, and you were never there complaining when the pharmaceutical companies were picking those people and then running their products through with no safety testing.
You can characterize it any way you want. I quoted them today. What I said was accurate. What you said were lies. You described moving the Titanic.
Are you saying that the mRNA vaccine has never been associated with myocarditis or pericarditis in teenagers? Is that what you're trying to tell us?
I am simply trying to say that the people that you have put on that panel, after firing the entire...
You're evading the question.
No, I'm asking the questions here,
You're
Mr.
evading
Kennedy.
that question.
I'm asking the questions, Mr. Kennedy. I'm asking the questions for Mr. Kennedy on behalf of parents and schools and teachers all over the United States of America who deserve so much better than your leadership. That's what this conversation is about, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, they deserve the truth, and that's what we're going to give them for the first time in the history of that agency.
Wow, and friends, got even more fiery after that, additional people speaking out. Next week, Lord willing, I believe it's around Wednesday, we're going to be having Dr. Elizabeth Lee Valite with us here on Crosstalk. She'll have some more comments about this as well, but throughout this hearing, Democrats shouted at Kennedy, interrupted him, refusing him to allow him to answer their questions. Senator Elizabeth Warren attacked him for removing the recommendations for COVID-19 vaccines for otherwise healthy people, saying he had broken his promise to keep vaccines available to everyone who wanted them. Well, Kennedy said they were still available and free for most people. Warren said that because in some states people would now have to pay for them out of pocket, Kennedy had broken his promise. Well, he then pointed out that she had taken $855,000 from pharmaceutical companies and said that she was asking him to recommend vaccines for which there was no clinical indication. He's also been called upon to resign from his position as secretary. Well, he's declining to do just that. Okay, let's move on to some other issues here. This is ResistTheMainstream.com. Seven political candidates from Germany's Alternative Party have died in the past 2 weeks. 7 candidates, sparking growing concern and public debate across the country. Local reports confirm that 4 deaths were initially attributed to natural causes. However, with the number now at 7, the situation has drawn increased attention just days before Germany's local elections. The Blaze reporting Congressman Jerry Nadler of New York has long been a pillar of the Democratic establishment in D.C. After 50 years in public office, the 78-year-old made a consequential announcement with respect to his congressional career, saying that he no longer will be seeking re-election in 2026, leaving a vacant seat in the heart of Manhattan. Nadler said that although his decision to retire was difficult, the longtime lawmaker wants to pass the torch to a new generation of Democratic leadership. And who is that new leadership? Well, Daily Mail is reporting that Chelsea Clinton is seriously considering this campaign to replace Jerry Nadler for the 12th Congressional District. Others have cited the possibility of Jack Schlossberg, the grandson of John F. Kennedy, getting into the race as well. He told the New York Times his entry into the race was certainly a possibility, but did not confirm his intent to run. It appears to be a safe seat for Democrats, and the primary is scheduled for June 23rd of 2026. Washington Examiner, Joni Ernst of Iowa has decided not to run for a third term in the U.S. Senate. She called it the privilege of a lifetime. From Slay News, alarming new data from the World Health Organization has revealed that the population of Generation Z humans around the world has been reduced by roughly 29% due to abortion. In addition, the data reveal that 28% of Gen Z Americans have been aborted. Gen Z, also known as Zoomers, includes those born between 1997 and 2012. The data taken from abortion industry giant Guttmacher Institute estimates that between 1997 and 2012, around 19.5 million American children killed through abortion. Now, friends, we talk about what's going to be coming with the older generation. There will not be enough in the young and coming up to be paying into Social Security and Medicare, etc. And do you believe that the tables are going to be turned now? We're going to see, some have termed it to be abortion at the other end of the age spectrum. 28% of Gen Z Americans have been aborted, according to the data. Slay News also reporting that billionaire Bill Gates funding a chilling new microcrystal implant contraceptive that self-assembles inside the body to shut down fertility and reduce global population numbers. The implants then release hormones to block pregnancy, which multiply inside the body with no way to remove them. In animal testing, the implants lasted months. In humans, however, they could persist for years, raising the risk of irreversible sterilization, especially, it's saying, in poor nations with no access to surgery to remove the devices. Meanwhile, Gates is bankrolling studies forecasting population collapse while promoting technologies that would only speed it up, from universal vaccines to permanent implants. LifeSiteNews.com tells us the Texas legislature has passed legislation to crack down on the distribution of abortion pills in their pro-life state. Those directly affected by chemical abortions, including the woman herself or immediate family members, would receive full damages awarded from successful suits, potentially in excess of $100,000. Liberty Counsel telling us Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion provider, will cease all operations in Louisiana effective September 30th by closing its 2 remaining facilities in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. Wow, that's good news to hear. Let's see. The National Review tells us that Florida has become the first state to suspend all vaccine mandates following an announcement from Governor Ron DeSantis and the Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, noting that an end to vaccine requirements for K-12 students in both public and private schools. It does not mean that they're eradicating vaccines, just not mandating them. Also, let's see, this from the Post-Millennial. Advocate Health has stopped providing sex change treatments to patients under the age of 19 following federal funding threats from the Trump administration. The decision to terminate such procedures announced on August 28th. They operate 69 hospitals across 6 states, with the Illinois branch of the hospital system Advocate Healthcare, providing 11 hospitals and 200 sites of care in Illinois, making it one of the largest health providers in the state. And so you know what you have? You've got legislators now that are saying, hey, even though they're shutting down these clinics, you come to me. I will find for you. I will connect you with those who will give you, these drugs to stop puberty or cross-sex hormones or the surgeries. This coming from LifeSiteNews.com, Michigan Representative Carrie Reingans urged gender-confused kids to reach out to our office if they want chemical or surgical mutilation. The video came after the University of Michigan said it would no longer inject kids with transgender drugs. So she went to make a post, and here's what she had to say.
State Rep Carrie Reingans here, and I am recording a video today to talk to you, trans kids here in Michigan. I want you to know that the care you might want for gender-affirming care is legal in Michigan, and it's still continuing in a wide variety of places. You may have heard that the University of Michigan is going to stop doing some of the safe and effective care. They're choosing to do that. The grown-ups at the University of Michigan Hospital are not under court order or anything. They are choosing to stop providing this care because they're scared of losing millions and millions of dollars from Medicare and Medicaid, which pay a lot of services at the University of Michigan. And if they don't get those dollars, they can't provide any care to anybody. But I want you to know, as trans kids here in Michigan, that this care is obviously safe and effective. That's why it's been approved and why it's been used all across the country and continues to be used. So if you need to find a new place to get care, it is still legal here in Michigan, and reach out to our office. We'll be able to connect you to what might still be available in our community. And there's also new support coming online for parents and families. So please contact our office. We love you. We are really supportive of you as kids, and we want to make sure that you can grow up and thrive here in Michigan.
You know, this message given out to kids. Contact our office. These drugs are, and here we hear the terminology, safe and effective. Oh, really? Oh, really? Is this why so many young people, the risk of suicide increases when people go on these transgender drugs? And you can't change one's gender. A boy can never become a girl can't become a boy. And yet we have legislators like this who are encouraging young people to come to their offices to be guided in getting the treatment that they need. The Post-Millennial reporting the New York City woman who was arrested for making threats to kill President Donald Trump, quietly released in late August by an Obama-appointed judge, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg. Haven't we heard his name before? As conditions of the release, this 50-year-old Natalie Rose Jones ordered to have a GPS monitor fitted and meet with her New York City psychiatrist. She's been charged with threatening to kill, kidnap, or injure the president and transmitting kidnapping threats using interstate commerce. Daily Caller tells us that the Democratic Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser has issued an order Tuesday continuing President Trump's executive order of federal officials in the nation's capital with local law enforcement will cooperate with. President Trump deployed the National Guard and invoked Section 40 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act to crack down on crime in the city. Now the mayor has announced the continuance of the Safe and Beautiful Emergency Operations Center to manage Washington, D.C.'s Safe and Beautiful Task Force. Headline, USA.com tells us the DHS Inspector General has issued a report on the Secret Service's counter-sniper team, finding that they're overworked and not properly qualified. This was commissioned after President Trump was nearly assassinated back in July of 2014 in Butler, Pennsylvania. According to the report, Secret Service counter-snipers must maintain their ability to shoot accurately during the daytime and at night. To do so, they're supposed to undergo a requalification process quarterly for daytime shooting and annually for nighttime shooting. Well, last year, all counter-snipers met their annual nighttime requalification, but only 17% of them met the daytime requalification requirement in the first quarter of last year. None of them did in the second quarter. We'll be back with more. And friends, if you'd like to call in with your comments on today's news or other current events, our number 800-733-9829. We'll be back in a minute.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Over the Labor Day weekend, President Trump stunned a lot of people with a post on Truth Social. He is saying that he wants to get to the bottom of the COVID shot. He has bragged for years about warp speed and what a great success it has been. And he's even been booed at his own rallies by his own supporters when bringing up the success of warp speed, the military that was behind the distribution of COVID-19 bioweapon shots, as many believe. Well, now he has apparently heard the truth. Someone has gotten through the veil, and he is not a happy camper. He says he wants the answers now. He wants to know, was warp speed a big success or not? This is great news, folks. Pray for President Trump to get the right information to protect us, the American people, from the pharmaceutical industrial complex. I'm Brandon House.
It's a News Roundup Friday here on Crosstalk, and I just want to report this as well. This is a story that came out from the Daily Signal. Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell is a White House correspondent for the Daily Signal, and she writes, as the Trump administration prepares an executive order to ban mail-in voting and require voter ID, Maine's Democrat Secretary of State admitted non-citizen residents are registered to vote in her state.
I'm sure there are, in some isolated instances, some non-citizens may be on the rolls.
By the way, she's running for Maine governor in 2026. If you want to comment on these or other current event stories, our number today, 800-733-9829. We have Greg calling from Bloomington, Illinois. Greg, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I find that very interesting that when Hillary Clinton ran for Senate, soon afterwards, JFK Jr. died, was killed, or whatever you want to believe, and now her daughter, Chelsea Clinton, is running for office, and JFK's grandson is running for office. So, kind of an interesting correlation there. I hope he doesn't get suicided. And another observation, or actually a statement I like to make.
But
Donnie had said,
just a note of correction. Yeah, JFK he was assassinated back in the early 60s. That's prior to the time Hillary ran for Senate.
No, I'm talking about JFK Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that if I wasn't clear. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to mention is Mom Donnie is acting that, saying that he wants to go to President Trump because President Trump is using Cuomo as a puppet.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we bypass Mom Donnie and go to who he answers to, and that would be Satan. All right, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts here today. We've got Alice in Arkansas. Alice, you're on the air.
Oh, thank you so much for taking my call. And again, it's like you're reading the Bible in this world coming to pass. First of all, I'd like to say the wicked should be turned into hell and all the nations to forget God, because the Bible has said he enlightened every man that comes into the world. And now we've got this evil axis over there of the communistic parties, and they want to live long. And God is God, and he will determine what goes on in this world that is his. Then we've got somebody in America not wanting to acknowledge God as a creator, and all men were created equal. And then we've got this awful transgender situation in Michigan. Oh, the Bible said, if God be for us, who can be against us? He still is on the throne, and nothing goes but what he would allow. But we need a revival.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Alice. We sure do. Ruth Ann is calling from Erie, Pennsylvania. You're on the air.
Hi. You just said that lady that tried to kill President Trump got off with just a bracelet or whatever. I think it's unconscionable. Did you know half of our January 6th political prisoners are still in the gulag with mold on the wall, rusty water, and bleach in their food and being tortured, and somehow that's okay, but this individual just got off. It's unconscionable.
Yeah. Thank you for your thoughts in raising that issue here today. Friends, number 800-733-9829. Yeah, this was an Obama-appointed judge that threatened the President of the United States. And here, you put this bracelet on and go see a psychiatrist. Something doesn't seem right there. By the way, Fox News reporting a federal appeals court ruled Tuesday that the Trump administration cannot speed the deportations of migrants accused of being members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. In a 2-1 ruling, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with immigrant rights lawyers and lower judges who argued that the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 was not created to be used against gangs like this. And we understand that is being challenged here before the U.S. Supreme Court. And the Epoch Times telling us that U.S. forces in the Caribbean fired upon a drug boat from Venezuela, killing 11 members. And now we have the Venezuelan military jets buzzing a U.S. Navy ship in a highly provocative move, the Pentagon is reporting. Let's go to Jesus in Glendale, Arizona. Jesus, you're on the air.
Good afternoon, sir. I just wanted to share, too. I don't know if you have heard, but in Dearborn, Michigan Heights Police Department, today they unveiled their new police patch with Arabic and English writing.
Yes.
And I think that's very dangerous because it's already a Muslim-populated community, and now they're displaying their police uniforms with Arabic writing.
Yes.
That's very, very disrespectful.
I caught that just before the program here today, and matter of fact, next week, on the anniversary of 9/11, we're going to be joined by Usama Dakdak, and that will certainly be one of the topics that we raise up here on the program. But indeed, having Arabic writing on the police patch and the police uniforms, that ought to cause us to raise our eyebrows and cause us to wake up to what's happening in our country.
Yes, sir. And it's amazing how these officials are allowing this to take place in our country. That's incredible that they are allowing this to take place.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for the call, Jesus. Our final call coming from Guatemala. Philip, you're on the air.
Yeah, Jim. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to comment on the story about the Chinese and Russian leaders conspiring on organ transplants. And I live in Guatemala, and as I understand that there's a national hospital system that is funded by China. And my comment is that there's been evidence that they're using those hospitals as a way to harvest organs from healthy newborns.
It is troubling.
And that's my comment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your call here and listening in Guatemala. We appreciate that. Indeed. And they're trying to, matter of fact, it was coming out of Canada or some location, they're trying to change the definition of death so that they can declare earlier a person is dead in order for organ harvesting purposes. And we know what has happened with political enemies in places like China, communist China, and very troubling to see this taking place. This is why many are removing from driver's licenses organ donation in case they become incapacitated in that regard. They're concerned about will they be declared dead before they're dead. Friends, thank you for tuning in to Crosstalk today and all this week. Let's keep our nation in prayer, and we need it. By the way, today is Friday. The Lord's Day is coming. I trust you'll be in a Bible-believing, Bible-teaching local church. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Tape Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.